Marvel Rivals' first comic book just dropped, and some new pieces of lore have been unveiled. So let's unpack it. On the internet, I'm Chris, and this is the place on the internet where I talk about comics, movies, games, and things I'm generally passionate about. And today we're going to be talking about the new Marvel Rivals comic, which just dropped as first issue on Marvel Unlimited. Now, the first issue is a Infinity comic, which in Marvel Unlimited world is a vertical scrolling comic, which much like a webtoon, if you've ever experienced one of those. They're short, a lot of times spotlighting specific heroes, just because it's not a typical 22-page comic that most people are familiar with, or even a graphic novel. And just to say, off the bat, not the best format to sort of highlight what is Marvel Rivals, one of the biggest games of the year. But hey, there's some new pieces of lore in the book. We get Galacta, we get the heroes fighting each other, and I think Marvel has been caught flat-footed by the success. Marvel Comics, that is. NetEase has done a great job of rolling this game out and making sure that people are excited, jump into the game. There's so many different characters you can have fun with and experiment. There's multiple characters that people feel are broken, which I find good because I think if everyone is complaining, I think it's fair. But Marvel Comics, with the release of it, and probably the biggest Marvel thing of the year, I take that back because Deadpool and Wolverine came out this year, and Agatha all along was pretty successful. But Marvel Rivals, I think culturally, is really in the zeitgeist now, and I think it's going to have a long-lasting impact on Marvel fans. And Marvel Comics, has no physical comic book of this, and I think it probably would have been better to go with a comic book that had digital codes where people could unlock exclusive skins or, I don't know, some type of in-game content or cosmetic. And instead we got this Infinity comic, which is something, but, it doesn't do much to expand the lore of Marvel Rivals. So the story starts with Galacta, who is, you've seen her in the game, and I think in this particular story kind of has like a watcher like role, like is a protector. And in this story she's sort of laying out the world of Marvel Rivals, where you have these multiple timelines colliding, you have heroes from alternate dimensions and alternate versions of themselves colliding. And in this first issue you have really all heroes, like Venom and Namor are kind of anti-heroes, but you can tell that this story is probably going to lead to where the villains come in, all the heroes realize like, hey, why are we fighting? And then you have two different, factions right now, where you have Master Weaver's side and then you have Spider Zero, which I don't know, like, again, it doesn't do a great job of setting things up because it's an Infinity comic, and there's some cool moments. You have Thor and Captain America teaming up, where Thor lights up Captain America's shield and throws it at Wolverine, which was awesome. But I kind of think Marvel Rivals the game does a really good job with just 1-2 minute cinematic of preparing everyone for the Zero season with Doom than this comic does in creating a world that is really interesting. Because for me, I think, hey, like, maybe you should put Doom in this, or one of the villains, or Null, who's also been teased, because the comic is just like, and the game is a little like this, but it's more interactive because you're playing it, but it's just a bunch of toys coming at each other. Like, I don't know what any of these characters' motivations are. I would have liked a more Secret Wars style comic book with, actual investment, maybe a 6-issue miniseries or a 12-issue miniseries that culminated in some awesome skin that you got in the end. And I think DC did a really good job of when they had their Fortnite collab. The book itself actually was like really dope and had a really compelling story. And on top of that, it had people that were not even interested in comics going to comic shops, or at least trying to buy the comic digitally and engaging with DC Universe on Infinite, because hey, there were codes in those issues that led to in-game loot in Fortnite, which you don't get with this Marvel Rivals comic. And we're going to be getting 6 issues, so hopefully they can adjust and make some things happen, but I doubt that. Infinity comics come out on a weekly basis, so this is issue 1. We're going to be getting more issues over the coming weeks, and I hope the story does unfold a little better. So I'm not trying to be too harsh on the actual contents of the book and the creative team, because I think it's more of like Marvel's approach and the editorial of doing this versus an actual full-length comic book where they can let the story breathe and add in some interesting elements, because in just this book alone you have like 15 characters, like 7 on each team. You have Galacta, you have things setting up. So if you have some context of the actual game, then like it makes sense. But if you were someone that opened their Marvel Unlimited app and was like, "Oh, what's this? This is a really cool cover, like Marvel Rivals. I've heard about that, it's like everywhere on the internet." You open it, you're like, what is this? Like, I don't know what's going on. The only setup you get is that monologue at the beginning with Galacta about the time streams and stuff like that. But even me, I had to read it like 2 or 3 times and kind of be like what, like actually what's going on in this? There aren't any clear stakes. And in terms of the little pieces of lore that's kind of added, like I said, with Master Weaver and Spider Zero, you have those dueling ideas of how they should approach saving the multiverse and the universe. I do think it is cool in terms of the way they approach these characters, because they're not really looked at as variants. Like what Doom has done, if you've seen the cinematic, is that he's broken the multiverse, and in breaking the multiverse, he's created new versions of characters, dreams, nightmares, also broken certain worlds that were safe and stabilized. And that is what has led to this battle world like scenario where it's a lot like Secret Wars. So it's interesting, and like I said, I'm hoping the next issues have more of that and sort of expanding on those ideas, because this first issue felt like it was just like, oh my god, it's Marvel Rivals. Let's put something together really quickly, and it's just a bunch of characters fighting, and there's cool moments between Venom and Spider-Man, and like I said, Wolverine, Hulk. But there's not much substance there. And some people will say like, well, it's based on a video game. What did you expect? Well, it's based on a really popular video game that is making Marvel and Disney a lot of money. So you would think they'd put more effort into building out the lore so that people that really love the game could really dive into these things. Now, with Marvel Rivals, because it's a live service game, it's probably going to live on for years. They have plenty of opportunities to right this ship and create something a little bit more expansive. I think this Infinity comic probably will be disregarded pretty soon, and they'll launch like an actual full-length series and explore maybe some of these same, like the same time period, or expand on these things. But I will say, for a first impression, not great. And if you want more of the lore, I actually suggest just watching the cinematic preparing everyone for Doom. I think that does a much better job of leading in things, and if you stop the video at certain points, you could see things like null, so for the future, and kind of get an understanding of the setup of Marvel Rivals, if you wanted more than just like, these are heroes and villains fighting each other for the point. So yeah, I mean, overall, like, if you have Marvel Unlimited, read it. I wouldn't recommend spending, if you could get a free trial, great, and read it, but I wouldn't recommend spending the $10 to get, a monthly subscription just to read this. Hopefully when the Infinity comic is put together, maybe there's a full-length version of it where they could kind of piece together the Infinity comic into an actual 22-page story, which, with Infinity Comics, there are stories that were full-length stories that were turned into Infinity Comics. So hopefully reverse engineer this Infinity comic into something, I think, a little bit more compelling for readers, fans, gamers, everyone. Because like everyone, I love Marvel Rivals, and I've been diving deep into the game, like having fun. I mean, for me, diving deep, I'm a parent and have a job, so it's hard to really dive deep, but it's the most fun I've had playing a video game in quite some time. So for me, that's diving deep. And what do you think? Are you excited for Marvel Rivals? Are you excited for the lore to expand? What did you think of issue 1 of the Infinity comic? Let me know in the comments below. Like, comment, subscribe, and peace.